Thank you, Jens, for that generous introduction. I'm very happy to be here to be the final speaker before your break. So I realize I'm standing between you and the ability to stretch your legs, so I'm going to keep my remarks fairly short. On June 8th, 1986, yes, that's almost a little bit more than 30 years ago, I, along with my parents and my elder brother, with a suitcase in each one of our hands, arrived in San Francisco from China after a 12-hour flight. With 8 suitcases total, that's our entire asset, and that's what started our journey in US. 30 years later, I'm a graduate of a master program from the California State University, Sacramento. Started with utilizing a lot of the public services when we were first immigrant family, learning English, barely get around, learning how to take bus, learning how to buy our first car and finance it, all due to the public services that was afforded us and helped my family to indoctrinate it in the society. After all of that, with my parents retired as college professors, that's what motivated me to continue to be a public servant, because it's now my time to give back. 2 years ago, Governor Brown asked me to stand in the position as the state chief information officer. And that's after 23 years in the public sector, working anywhere from environmental science to pension, to tax and revenue, to school funding, that really prepared me for the job that I'm in today. And in those 2 years of practice, every day I ask this question, not to myself, also to the entire team of the Department of Technology. How can we, as the state of California, utilize technology to better our ways of delivering public services to the constituents of California? Advances in technology, it's a constant change in the government. Yet, the concept of embracing user-centered design and knowing what the user needs are at the forefront, it's a fairly new concept until about 2 years ago. With the relentless leadership and the champion of user-centered design by the Government Operation Agency Secretary Maribel Basher, we, the state of California, embarked into that journey. I believe 2 years ago, she was here with you, sharing a story about the Health and Human Services Agency starting a new project called the Child Welfare System. And many of the folks attending today probably have heard about that project and has been tracking it. 2 years later, I'm very happy to report that project is continuing to make great progress. Granted, there are adjustments need to be made along the way. Hey, the project this complex and this large, making adjustment along the way, it's a normal process. In fact, that is the very essence of Agile. When we learn something doesn't work quite the way we expect it, take the guts, make a change, and keep at it. And that kind of spirit is catching up to other initiatives. I'd like to also report to you, learning from all of those lessons and with all of the great support in the government, we, the state of California, have recently launched within 1 year the cannabis regulation. And it's a 4 system. Yes, I hear one hand clap. And I want to emphasize this cannabis regulation. It's 4 system that to help regulate and market that has been out for probably over 30 years. In less than a year, in fact, 9 months to be exact, 4 systems, statewide utilization was launched under budget and on time. You have heard from Jens earlier, Accenture's continue to do great work in improving the user experience of the Cover California health system. And after several years of implementation, very, very happy to hear that they're putting the user experience as the forefront of that. AIDS patient services, from an unfortunate interruption of service that could have a great negative impact to a lot of the AIDS patients, Agile method was deployed to quickly bring together a system to help support those AIDS patients in merely 6 weeks of what would have taken a few months to keep the service uninterrupted. That is Agile at its best. DMV. We all know about our DMV experience. Guess what? This is a new day of DMV. With the recently released motor voter system, which is to make voters registration easier for the Californian, was launched in the 9-month time period from what would have been a year of effort. Now, I have to say, people definitely stress over it, and few of you that are in the audience, you know who I'm talking about, are definitely working around the clock to make that happen. But the good thing about that is that nobody was fazed by that challenge. Nobody was, overwhelmed by the left and right unexpected surprises that came up that would have, put this project to the south. Instead, we embraced those challenges and worked through it as a team with a lot of midnight, sometimes 10 o'clock ice cream run just to keep our developers, jazzed, but it made it happen. The Chief Deputy Director of DMV, Bill Davidson, once said, after seeing the experience gone through in motor voters, DMV would never do another project without user-centered design and using Agile methodology. Just to name a few of these are inspiring story that is what, leading the state of California down the path of delivery of digital services. CHH's Undersecretary Michael Welkening, who you're going to be hearing from tomorrow, is that individual 2 years ago stand out and say, look, let me offer you the most visible project, child welfare, to be that demonstration effort for the state. That's someone that has guts and confidence and the willingness to give it a try. I urge you tomorrow to listen to his speech as he has more example and more innovative idea that he's going to take this California to. While we have made a lot of progress, I have to admit, it hasn't been easy. The technology side of it, even the processing side of it, it's manageable. The human element side of a change has been very difficult. I have to admit, there were times that everybody involved is ready to give up. There were times that everybody involved to say, why don't we go back to the way it was? At least we know what it is. The uncertainty, the bumps, ahead of us that are unknown to folks, it's been a challenging testament to those that are able to overcome. And for those that are able to overcome, persistency, commitment, and resiliency has been our daily vocabulary to keep each other, lifted in facing all these challenges. Changing a government this big is not easy. We have to stop. We have to, assess on a daily basis on what are the small wins that we can build on and what are the big, potholes, if you would, that we want to make sure we don't step into. And that kind of a commitment and that kind of resiliency is something that I really want to share and experience with you on how we draw that strength and where we draw that strength. On January 22nd of this year, my family got the devastating news that my mom was diagnosed with advanced cancer. And this is someone who's 79 years old, has healthier living habits than I am. And we thought she simply had a common cold and turned into an advanced cancer that if it's not treated immediately, she has less than a year of life. Exactly 1 week later, January 29th, my aunt, who I am the sole caretaker of, was diagnosed with another advanced cancer. As the world was crashing down on us, I remember I was driving in the rain around town from doctor to doctor's office to try to collect their medical record, because in this day and age, believe it or not, there's still not a single electronic health system that ties the various health systems together. And I was thinking to myself, I can't believe I have to do this. I'm in technology, and yet I don't have a way to even get their record together other than the fact that I have to go to doctor's office and collect CDs. I don't even know you guys know what CD is anymore. But the fact that is happening, and I would say, I just give up. This is not happening. But it was my mom, 79-year-old, ailing in health, told us, snap out of it. Challenges are inevitable. It's how you deal with it. So instead of being victim by it and say, I don't know what to do, look to your network. Look to the people who can support you. Work together and overcome it. Level set your expectation. If my mom, could prolong her life 2 years instead of 1, that's a win. 3 instead of 2, that's a win. And let's just celebrate that. With that kind of mindset, I did make a lot of change. We changed how my department works, and this is about adapting to the new reality. We changed how the department no longer is a control agency. Instead of telling people what you do wrong, let's find out what they're doing right and build upon it. So we call ourselves a coaching agency now. And for those that are continue to struggle with the daily challenges and ready to give up, I want to ask you to keep looking at the positive side of things, to keep looking at the community that you can count on, to keep working with those that you can trust and have confidence in, and believe that working together, whether you're in the public sector, on the private sector, we can come any challenges that's in front of us. So public service is too important to simply give up because there are challenges ahead of you. Public services require a lot of advancement that are depending on the digital delivery of those services. So together, I'm asking you all to stay engaged, to stay committed, to have perseverance, and together we will keep this movement of digital delivery of public services alive and continue to move forward. Thank you.